Yeah, it's like I'm trying to avoid the RBF because, you might have IBS, might be causing the RBF for you. So
it could be. Could be the IRS. Typically, that's what happens.
Exactly. There's that tip.
This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, a podcast about Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals. Mostly.
So I got to ask, what would a perfect city be like, in your opinion?
A perfect city for me?
For you, yeah.
God, that is, I don't even know where to begin with that.
Is Nashville perfect for you?
No, heck no.
No.
But that's okay. I mean, I don't think there's such thing as a perfect city, because what would probably make a city perfect is like a level of diversity. So thusly differences of opinions, which nothing wrong with it. But then does that make it imperfect? It's perfect in its imperfections.
That's way too deep for me at this point of the day.
Sorry, I know it's like not enough coffee.
No, I don't know if I've had enough coffee yet for that.
You have more.
So guys, as you're listening to this, that voice that you hear is a friend of mine who wandered into this room once upon a time on another podcast called The Rich Redmond Show. And you ever run into somebody and just like meet them upon first? We were like in the midst of recording another episode, and this gentleman walked in. Just, hey man, I'm here. He was early or whatever. And as soon as I saw I just like this guy. He's just, and like everybody that I know, my wife even had the same kind of reaction as well. Oh. And you're a good hang and just a warm human being. And, Mr. Luis Espaillat.
Oh, well, thank you very much, man. Very kind of you to say.
That's right.
And feelings mutual, man. I love hanging with you as well, but very kind of you to say.
So, Luis, you are a lifelong career bass player. You slap at the bass. How many times do you hate hearing that, or how many times have you heard that?
I'll say this, that when the movie came out, that's from I Love You, Man.
Yes.
Paul Rudd.
Paul Rudd.
And as soon as I saw the movie and saw that line, I knew it was going to become a thing.
It's going to stick.
You just like, I think every other bass player probably thought the same thing. Just like, here we go. It's coming. It's the equivalent of like, whenever, like pick any instrument. If you're a musician, like even at a school level, but people know you, like, oh, you're a drummer or whatever. There's always what I call the common person that doesn't play.
Right.
They're going to say, there's that one song. Oh, you play blah, 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 blah. Can you play insert song? So like for the longest time it was like, oh, you play bass. Can you play Another One Bites the Dust? Now, technically,
come to think of it, no, I can't.
Right. But I'll put it to you as an example. It's not technically the most complex thing. It's not known for that. But to people that they go ooh and ah, because that song, the bass is up and forward, and they know like, oh, that's what bass sounds like.
Yeah.
Ooh, you'd impress me. You can play that. Okay, I can play that.
And then you play it and they're like, oh my gosh, you actually did it. Holy moly. Hey, can you play the intro to Walk This Way on the drums?
Exactly. There you go. There's your drum example. There's one of the many.
Oh my gosh. Can you play In the Air Tonight? The Big Phil? Oh, let me try.
Well, you could argue with that one as well. Go like, well, can you play that? You mean at the beginning of the song? Oh, you just hit play on the drum machine and wait for 2 minutes before you're... Exactly. Yeah, I can play that. You just hit the space bar or whatever. Yeah, totally play that. And just sit back and just
kind of hang out.
Yeah, just hang out
until the big moment.
By the way, did you watch the Jimmy Fallon, the Tonight Show, where Phil Collins came in, like this is when he's doing that solo tour before the Genesis farewell tour. And so he had his band, but he had Questlove playing drums, and he did In the Air Tonight. And they totally like set it all up like, hey Quest, you nervous? You nervous? You're going to play In the Air Tonight with Phil Collins. And there's that Phil, are you nervous? You're going to, and he's like, yeah, I'm kind of nervous or whatever. So they go to do In the Air Tonight, and here comes the Phil, and he does it and nails it. And the crowd goes nuts. And just the look on his, he goes,
well, the funny thing is, the Phil of that song is just the beginning, as we all know.
Right.
The rest of that song on the drums is actually kind of difficult.
It is. It's a part. It's a very specific part.
Yeah.
And it speaks volumes to like how great of a drummer Phil Collins is.
Right.
It's very musical.
Extremely musical. And just even the other fills that as the song progresses and the energy kind of fades off from that one big crescendo, you have like, God, you know what I mean? He's doing all sorts of stuff in that song that's so syncopated that, genius.
Yeah. And I love the fact that watching you again, body language, I'm like, oh, you're a drummer.
That's right.
And I love that. I love because it's like, there's a joy and a passion, even you doing an air drum, but the way your body moves, it's not like even me doing air drums. It's not the same.
You can tell like, and I have to say that a lot of that is probably because of our friend Rich, who he feels the music, and you have to be shown that sometimes with somebody who's so rhythmically connected. Because you watch him, he's literally dancing, and I never really did that growing up when I played. I just kind of, if I was emulating somebody, it might have been a Neil Peart or Alex Van Halen for the first couple of years. Then I got into like the metal guys and stuff like that. Then Carter Beauford, which was everything was just precise and technical, but he doesn't dance. Rich does.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? He feels that. He really does feel intrinsically with every fiber of his being, the actual pulse of the music.
Oh yeah, very much so. It's like, that's one of those guys, even like he's talking to you about music. You're like, you're a drummer. Yeah. You couldn't be anything else. And he'd probably say,
he's a musician of musicians though. His musical vocabulary and knowledge is deep. He's extremely educated.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. So your background, you came from which part of the country again?
Well, I was born in Flint, Michigan. So I have to, this is the short version because a lot of moving around happened before I turned 10. So I just tell people, I was born in Flint, Michigan, didn't stay there long, 6 months. We moved a few times. We settled in Sebring, Florida, center part of the state, just south of Orlando. And from the time that I was 9.5 years old, right about there, until I went to college, Boston. So I stayed there. So I tell people I grew up in Florida, which I did. Right, those are my formative years. And that's where I grew up. And then college in Boston and then here.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. Sebring actually came up recently. I'm like, Sebring, I know I've heard that recently, not just because of you being on Rich's show earlier this year, but in the Earnhardt documentary.
Yes.
That just came out, I believe, on Netflix or Amazon, one of those things.
Like that, yeah.
But it's a great documentary. Even if you're not into NASCAR, they talked about the Sebring proving grounds, I guess.
That's correct. Yeah. There is a NASCAR track there, and it's still going. It's the 12 Hours of Sebring.
That's right.
It's part of the circuit. It's the whole thing. It is a big to-do. It's like big-time NASCAR stuff or whatever. There's the proving track there, but there is the track where they run the race, the 12 Hours of Sebring. That's been still going.
Sebring is, I guess, how people get trained for Le Mans in France.
I like the way you said Le Mans.
Le Mans.
It's the way
only because we watched another documentary about that after watching.
Oh, right. Gotcha. So there you go.
It's not Le Mans.
Right.
It's
correct.
Le Mans.
Exactly. It's the French.
Yes. But Sebring has left and right curves.
Yes. Good one. Good one. The other thing about Sebring too, that I, for whatever reason, it took me all to even put two and two together, but there was, if you remember back in I think it was the mid to late 80s into the 90s, they made the Chrysler Sebring. Right. That was a car model. Yep. It's named after that because it's an automotive thing, Yeah. So
getting into slap on the bass, when did you get introduced to it? And what, I'm always kind of curious about people who decide, well, I'm just going to do the 4 strings rather than the 6 that, I can play all these other things, but you could still be very melodic on a bass. But as a foundational rhythmic instrument, out of the two, which are drums and bass,
right?
I was always naturally gravitated towards the drums. I always knew since I was 6-7 years old that I wanted to play. So my mom got me a saxophone, and that eventually changed into drums when I was about 11 or 12 finally. So a little bit of a late start, but how did you know it was bass for you?
That's an interesting question because that's something, well, you just described a very common approach that all musicians do where they settle on their primary instrument because we all dabble in other things and we have in the past.
Yeah, if you play bass, you're going to play guitar.
Yeah, a little bit. But but that's not where I started. Like there's a lot of bass players, very well accomplished bass players that started as guitar players and just said the old story of like, oh, we didn't have a bass player in our band. We need a bass player. Here's a bass, play.
Right.
You can figure it out. I didn't go that route. I never played guitar as my primary instrument ever. Yeah. And even to this day, I just consider myself a hack at it. I know chords and I can kind of steer around, but you
could be a good rhythm guitar player if you
maybe
wanted to.
Even that I'd kind of question myself because I get to work with these world-class guitar players on a daily basis that I'm like, I have no business playing guitar like them.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like music has always been a part of my life since the get-go, since the jump. And I always had a desire to study, get involved, play music to some degree. So that started with piano lessons with me when my mom and my dad, for that matter, too, noticed that I showed an interest. And they're like, all right, well, that's the logical. Oh, good, let's get you some piano lessons. Makes sense. So it started that at 6, which is I would argue one of the best instruments to start to understand the mechanics of music because it's laid out for you.
Yeah.
You can visually see what a whole step and a half step is and all these other chord structures. It's just laid out. You can see it.
On a piano.
On a piano, yes. Any kind of keyboard, piano, that type of instrument. And then when it came to middle school, it was their school band, but piano is not a common element in a school band, orchestra, whatever.
Usually the teacher's playing that.
Yeah, usually if they are, you're absolutely right. And come to think of it now, most of my growing up band directors were primarily piano players. Makes sense. Yeah. So for me, I was like, all right, well, let me trumpet. Really took an interest. I love just it's not too big, not too small, especially at that age, but I'd like that was like something else to play.
Yeah.
So I did trumpet for 6 years, all through middle school and 2 years of high school. And then I switched over to baritone horn. My band director said, hey, you can read treble and the two clefs of music. Usually if you play an instrument that's a one voice thing, you're reading one or the other. Piano, you're reading both because you're covering both sides of the musical spectrum. So because of that, I was able to read on music both the treble clef, the upper part, and the bass clef, bottom. And so because I could do that, they're like, hey, why don't you switch to the baritone horn? It's similar with the fingering of like a trumpet where the 3 vowels and everything else. And you could read the bass clef. So I did that and I really enjoyed that. Finally, long story short, getting to bass, I had interest in being in a band, because I'm like, well, this is the one thing is being an unpopular kid. He's like, music's my saving grace. And people, hey, you're a musician, be in a band. Well, cool. It sounds like fun. Played keyboard, synthesizers, but I really enjoyed the sound of bass, the low end. It's just this enriching, low, warm and fuzzy feeling, and it really spoke to me. So like with you with drums, it's like, that's what spoke to you. And anybody, instrument wise could say the same thing.
I did want to play cello once.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I love a cello.
Only reason? Jaws. Yep.
Well, those are contrabasses on the track too. Mm-hmm.
That was it.
Yeah. So that's a great, whatever. It inspired you.
I forgot about that. I think my brother reminded me, he's like, you also wanted to play cello. I go, that's right. I forgot about cello. The upright bass.
Yeah.
Isn't that pretty much cello?
No, cello is a different range and it's tuned differently. And just from a physical standpoint, it's a slightly smaller instrument.
Right.
So
so the upright bass is larger.
Much larger, yeah. And but the ranges can cross over. Like there's certain upper register upright bass stuff that'll lead into what's a normal range for cello and vice versa.
Yeah.
So it's possible. But anyway, so the bass range, not just the instrument, just that thing really spoke to me. And obviously, contemporary music, you're hearing bass guitar.
Yeah.
So that was something that really spoke to me, and I'm like, well, my approach is, all right, I understand music. I understand the mechanics of music. I'm looking at the instrument of a bass guitar and going, okay, there's 4 strings. Each are E, A, D, G. That's the normal tuning of a bass. And I'm like, okay, I can wrap my head around that. And then each fret or each position is just a chromatic step up, like a piano, just right up the line. I get that. How hard could it be? Famous last words.
Right.
And sure enough, I'm like, well, I really just want to regardless. So I took some babysitting money I had in high school. Actually, it was also some Christmas cash that I got from my family, from my dad, mom, my stepmom. And I went and bought my first bass guitar. And it was just like, oh yeah. Yeah. Okay.
It's me.
This is like just something. And it gave me that level of, I felt good about it. So because I felt good about it, I wanted to work harder at it. And it gave me, once I was developing a comfort level, a certain level of confidence. So it's like, yeah, this is me. This has spoke to me. So before long, I'm like, okay, I've always wanted to do music to some capacity. So I was going to go to music school. So when you go to a higher level music education, there's also things like, okay, what's your primary instrument? What's your focus? What's your this, whatever. So it became, I said, I can do bass.
Yeah.
So that's how that developed. And then off to the races. There you go.
Nice.
So that's how I became a bass player. And it's funny because over the years, I've had many people say, hey, you look like a bass player. And I don't know if that's a compliment or insult or what, or I don't know. I've always been a musician, not necessarily a bass player just by that, but yeah, obviously I'm that. But is it something that I grew into? maybe there's a physical thing of the instrument. You just kind of grow into it, or it's like, oh, now you look like a bass player, or you look like a drummer, or you look like a whatever. I don't know.
You can tell when certain people are just meant to play what they're playing.
Right.
Eddie Van Halen comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that instrument was just it was like a limb.
Yeah.
It was just a part of his being. And I mean, that whole family was very musical to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, from his brother playing the drums to Eddie playing, I mean, they both played piano.
Right.
But, yeah, you can just tell. And you could also tell when someone's doing something that you're like, yeah, that's not you.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Well, how many times have you watched, which some productions are better about this than others, but if you're looking at a TV show or a movie or some dramatic whatever the hell on screen, and they have the fake band playing in the background because it could be like a wedding reception or something or whatever. And sometimes you go like, and you can tell almost right away going like, you've never held that instrument in your life,
right?
Let alone know how to play. You just never held a guitar or held a pair of drumsticks or whatever, you know? So that really cracks me up because I've been hired to be a background player on TV shows playing my instrument because they're like, good, because the production cared. And I was like, yeah, you're just miming back here, but we want it to look legit.
Yeah, like you're actually playing the damn song.
Yeah, it's like, because
you know how many times I see that in the background and the drummer's hitting the snare drum on the downbeat?
Oh yeah, that's a great example. My favorite thing that I've watched with speaking of my instrument about bass or a bass guitar, upright bass, forget it. I've seen more wrongdoings on camera with an upright bass than I can shake a stick at. But with electric bass with a bass guitar, I just saw a commercial recently and somebody's doing this. And there's this thing about, you know, if you're right-handed and, you know, typically if you're not playing with a pick like this or whatever, I don't know if you can see this in the shot or whatever.
I'll zoom out on it.
Yeah, zoom out or do whatever you have to do. But and I normally don't play my instrument this high up. Okay. Right. So just for the record, people, you don't play that high. No, I don't. But you have the body instrument and you just kind of rest your finger on the body and you're playing like this, right?
Yeah.
But then I've seen where they take their thumb and they hook it behind the body. So they're playing like this is the body of the instrument. Their thumb is back here behind it. And they're not even attempting to play. They're just kind of doing this like a flipper. And I'm just like, you're not even hitting the string. And their left hand, on the other hand, is not even fretting or putting their fingers on the board, on the string to do the thing. It's just kind of hanging out there. It's like they're moving their palm like this, but these fingers are not making contact. And I'm just like, but they're doing the whole dance or whatever.
That's right.
And no. Please.
Doesn't really matter if it looks like I'm playing.
Exactly. So, and again, this is just, you know, the geeky side of me and being all critical and like, it's a commercial.
But that's us musicians. I do the same exact thing.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah. You know, I could appreciate a television show that puts the work in and you can tell that the drummer is actually, look, he's either acting or he's learned. Look at Miles Teller in the movie with
Whiplash.
Whiplash, yeah. They filmed that movie in 16 days.
Wow, that was fast. I didn't realize that.
And it's a really trying movie to watch. Mm-hmm. It's like I saw it once, not exactly something I want to go back and watch again.
It's one of those I really enjoy. I've seen it twice. Yeah. In full disclosure, I think the both times I saw them was on an in-flight, seat back.
Yeah.
And I was just like, it's something, the first time I saw it, the second time I already know it. I can just kind of, it's more in the background, but I enjoy it from a dramatic standpoint. But I will agree with you. Yeah, it's a very trying movie that it's tension ridden.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like nervous energy. So yeah, if you're not in the right mindset, that can just be unnerving for you.
My brother's like, he's like, yeah, that guy was a good teacher. I'm like, dude.
Yeah. The other thing, I mean,
I said, I get what he's trying to do, but he's leading by fear and terror.
Right. And I don't know if you remember when that movie came out, there was a bit of a backlash from professional music educators. Like, we don't do that.
Yeah.
You know, that's not an acceptable practice. Not to say that hasn't happened in the past. Sure. But I will tell you from my own perspective of studying music since I was 5-6 years old and going through having a degree in music and having mentors and having college professors at the highest level, I've never experienced that.
Right.
I mean, the worst of it was just like, I'm sure I've gotten the side eye from some of my instructors going like, you didn't practice a week, did you?
Yeah.
You know, that's about it. But it's kind of like, you know, you get that. You don't get chairs thrown at you.
Right.
No.
Not the right tempo. You're off tempo.
Yeah.
1, 2.
Not my tempo.
Yeah. Okay. Getting back to just, you know, so in high school, you were really getting it. You bought your first bass in high school.
Yes.
10th, 11th grade or
right around there. Yeah.
Okay.
I think like 10th or somewhere in that window. I can't remember exactly, but yes.
Right around that time, I was the drummer in high school because I was good by then, right? Mm-hmm. Throughout middle school, I was really kind of coming up, maybe in the 9th grade, I kind of got into it at that point. But like to your point earlier, that confidence really does start to bloom when you find out what your identity is. Like my brother always had piano and keyboard, synthesizers. I mean, he had like a bona fide PA system in his room with, big old subs and all that stuff, racks of keyboards and a room that's smaller than this room we're in now and his bed and whatever. But that was always his identity. And it's funny, we had a podcast back in October, just he and I catching up, because we're getting to the age now that even though we didn't have much in common back then, we're starting to have a lot more in common now.
Good.
And it's like, I'd love to play with him, on a more permanent basis if he were to get his butt down here. But that was his identity. I was always envious of that, because mine was like dirt bikes and motorized vehicles and building RC cars. And then a couple other odds and ends. Once the drums were, that became, this is me. This is me. And I just know it through and through. And anybody that sees me play knows it's me. Yeah. Because I just excelled at it, and it gave you a tremendous sense of confidence. I mean, that was, so you kind of not late bloomed, but you kind of discovered that into your midway high school years, I guess. Yeah.
Well, that particular instrument, I mean, music is like I said, I prefaced that. It's just like, it's the identity of you being a drummer and me being a bass player. It goes beyond that. Like it's being a musician.
Yeah.
And that's something I've always identified with. And that in and of itself has always given me confidence as well. It just so happened that was the discovery of like really funneling and this being my voice within the parameters of an ensemble or the music or how I relate to the music. I've done keyboard stuff for other things live and otherwise, but the bass is what I guess I'm known for. I guess there is an identity to it.
Yeah.
But it's something also that the confidence came prior.
Right.
This just helps propel it more. And I also seem to think because that's the first time I bought a first bass. It's not the first time I've held a bass or steered around because I have friends with them and I didn't. I already knew it already started to feel comfortable in my hands. But I think about that time in your life, that age, that you're just discovering who you are, full stop. Like you're trying to figure out.
You're at the beginning of discovering who you are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But the beginnings of here's me is happening then, the whole hitting of puberty and growing into yourself, as they say, both emotionally and physically.
Yeah.
And, it's really getting the sense of self beyond just I think that music, especially where this is an occupation, but it's a passion-driven occupation. It's a very personal thing, just helps propel that. And it really is. I became more confident as a result. I used to be way more sheepish and quiet and that kind of thing. And this just helped bring out what was already there, but really like, no, it's okay. Be a little more extroverted, be confident.
Right.
It really does. And that's why, as many people talk about the importance of music education in the school, because it does go beyond those things of what psychologically it helps you with math and the academics. But what does it do beyond is you as the whole person? The whole thing of when you're educating kids, we want to educate the whole being.
Yeah.
So that's like, it's phys ed, it's the academics, it's the arts, it's everything, because the end result is you become a better, more well-rounded person.
A good attempt at,
or attempt at that.
Yeah.
Obviously nobody's perfect, but right. I mean, that's the best chance you have.
Yeah. Yeah. It was one of those things that in college, I got more, well, I guess it was because of understanding Dream Theater and intricacies that go into that band. But I got more rhythmically rounded and educated in terms of, and since then I've lost it. I can't really articulate that well when it comes to talking like, eighth notes and quarter notes and sixteenths. I know what they are.
Sure.
But nowhere near on a professional level. But it was kind of interesting in college to really delve into that side of things because I never learned how to read music. As a drummer, I guess you really don't need to. I mean, everything we need is feel.
Right. Well, that can be argued with any instrument because that's always been like you should really be playing by feel and feel alone. Well, right. There's truth in that. You need to feel and emote that thing. That's the whole point of this art of music, and is the expression. But what the theory side of it, shall we say, the learning how to read and everything else, those things just help you make you a better communicator amongst your peers. Like if you're trying to communicate an idea, it's even with reading as a drummer. Yeah, there's a lot of gigs and things where there is legitimate reading to be done. I just had breakfast this morning with my friend Chris Sutherland, drummer. Him and his wife both but they do musical theater. They're out on the national production of Some Like It Hot right now, both of them.
Yeah.
And he's a drummer. And we were talking about the whole concept of like, do you get the book ahead of time? Do you have to read this? You have to be able to read to do that, because they don't necessarily just give you a recording. They're like, here's music.
Start listening to it over and over and over.
Exactly. Well, there's that thing. It's like, and then becomes the thing of like, okay, like, and I freely admit it's like, I can read music, but I'm not like what they call a sight reader, where it's like a fasting, where they just put the sheet in front of you, like, go play.
Yeah.
I need a little time. So even those opportunities where I have to read music, I always ask in advance, like, hey, is there any chance that you can give me that book ahead of time?
Right.
So I'm not holding you up as I get through this, but I can read it. It's just not super fast.
Right.
And I think with drummers too, there's an important thing. And there's a lot of drummers that work with orchestras and and like I said, pit orchestras and, musicals and whatnot. I mean, if you've ever seen it, it's written, it's notated. There's drum notation in the whole yard. So it's
hieroglyphics to me.
Exactly. And that doesn't mean like you don't, people say, do you have to? Well, it depends on what you're doing.
Yeah.
I will say though, it never hurts to be able to.
Yeah.
Even if it sounds like, well, I don't rarely have to read a gig or whatever. Still a good skill to have when it comes up.
At least learning how to chart.
Yeah.
Very quick, index card kind of thing, and jot something down. I've done that in my own way before, where I've had a friend of mine at work when I was in radio. She was an aspiring artist, and she says, hey, would you, she's seen me play with certain things that we did around the radio station, nothing serious. She says, well, you're good enough. I'd love to have you as my drummer. And I said, well, get me all your, how many songs are we doing? 5. Okay. Just get them to me and I'll make a CD or whatever, put it on my phone. We don't think we had that technology back then, but that's how I absorbed this, listening. And then I found myself actually going, well, wait a minute, let me see if I can actually break this down into something I could glance at and understand what's there. Yeah, that didn't work.
Oh, gotcha. Well, and the biggest thing, it's like you pointed out, the biggest thing about learning music too is listening. Yeah. It really is, because that's the biggest key thing, more than the reading, more than anything else. The one thing that I emphasize a lot to anybody is the importance of listening.
Yeah.
Especially learning music.
Importance of what?
Listening.
What was that?
Exactly.
Hold on.
Get the thing. There we go. Thank you. So yeah, get your tight 5-minute stand-up routine ready, and I'll see you at City Winery. But the importance of listening in music, not only for learning, because I do that too. And I think I mentioned that the last time we spoke as well about, if I'm filling in or I have a show to learn, it's just like, I put the earbuds in, go walking, off of my phone. Immersion, just learning, because if you're listening, especially drums, it's like you can visualize, where things have to be. And that's applicable to my instrument as well. It's like I can kind of tell that's in the key of E, and I kind of know where I need to go. And
make sure you hook your thumb over the body.
Exactly. I have to do that thing and the flipper and the thing. Yeah. Jeez. That's the importance of that as well. It really is. But beyond just the learning aspect, it's also, look, you're playing with other human beings. We live in the day and age of YouTubers and TikTokers or whatever, musicians that are famous because they sit at home playing by themselves and they've got this burning technique and they can do it. But I've been in a room with a few of those guys that, I've never played with other people before.
Yeah.
And it shows, and you can tell. And the biggest thing is they're not listening because they don't have to, because the recording's running on automatic.
Right.
But the whole thing, it's like think of the joy that you get for me playing with a drummer, and the drummer decides to go somewhere else, and I'm going to follow him, and I've learned, in learning personalities in musicians, like, we talk about those things. It's like, I know, like if I'm in a room playing we'll talk about our friend Rich. It's like, I've played with Rich off and on for a couple decades now. I know where he's going to go and vice versa.
Right.
So, but there's a joy in it. It's like, oh, Rich, you're going to do that Rich thing you do. Do that thing you do. I like that. But insert another drummer, same deal. They have their own version. I love how I get a big joy of people's personalities coming out and they're playing, and the certain things that they do. But the joy comes from getting a room full of 5 or 6 people or more and watching them go and playing with them. It's like, ooh, this is going to be fun how this is all going to come together.
Speaking of listening.
Yes.
As you well know, I played a gig recently at the City Winery with the Heart of Rock and Roll, the Huey Lewis and News tribute, one of the best ones, if not the best one in America. And I prepared, I want to say probably 3 months for that because it was the first foray for me in that kind of a capacity in probably well over 20 years. Other things I did around town were just little one-offs, stuff for the company I worked for. My drumming took a back seat for many decades. Certainly not when I was a teenager and into my early 20s when I was playing with bands in Connecticut. But getting down here, it's kind of intimidating. So it's like knowing that you're in Nashville, you're playing at a very high-end or at least noticeable venue that's known for having good acts and stuff like that. Having people that do this for a living professionally coming to see, I better have my A game, wherever that is. And I sat there for probably, listening to that set over and over and over and over and over and over again. You get to the gig, in my case, I put headphones on because I don't have any ears. And you start getting your mixes and stuff like that. Stuff I haven't done in years. Just download the app and do this. Yeah, but nothing's working. It's,
Yeah.
Dude, my nerves leading up to taking my seat were off the charts that night.
Really?
Yeah.
And
then
I couldn't tell.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And then I lost my ears halfway through the damn show.
I remember you saying that afterwards. So, yeah, I felt pretty good about it, but I lost my ears.
Speaking of listening.
Yeah, exactly. But and kudos to you for caring to do the prep work ahead of time and recognizing that, but still kudos for you to like not shy away from it. It's like, yeah, I'm going to get on a proper stage with professional top tier musicians and you're doing it.
Yeah.
Like there's so many people who are like, I couldn't do that. Well, why not? Put in some work, do it. You're going to love it. You love yourself.
I knew I could do it.
Yeah.
I knew I could do it. That confidence was there. I knew I had to shake off the rust.
Sure.
Get back into, fighting shape, so to speak. And then, once you kind of get there, it's all attitude and that stuff I learned from Rich is that, sometimes it's not about your ability. It's about, are you a cool hang?
Yeah.
And, I wasn't going to be a problem. Every time, once I kind of got comfortable and was getting into the groove of everything, I was all warmed up, but smiles, man, just have a good time, make eye contact with people. What's the most frustrating thing? You go to see a band, let's say, not necessarily downtown, because you're dealing with people that do this, not always on a 10 level, but at least an 8 or a 9, downtown and Broadway, whatever. You go out 30 miles to some of these bars around here, you're going to get like kind of run-of-the-mill cover bands, right?
Yeah.
One of the most frustrating things for me is to see a band with the iPads on the mic stands, which has become a thing. I get it. It's technology. That's an easier way to, I guess, you can't memorize all the lyrics. Got it. But a drummer who doesn't kick the band's ass drives me bonkers.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% with that. To speak about the iPad thing, I've always approached that concept on a case-by-case basis because I've been in situations where I've had to slap an iPad up there, but I'm filling in like another thing or there's not enough run-up time. I do agree, like if you have the means or whatever, especially in a show environment, that's the key thing. It's a difference if you're going to be in a recording session.
Oh, yeah.
But if you're on stage, best not to have that if you can avoid it. Sometimes there's always a case for emergencies. We've all been there where it's like, hey, can you come fill in the show tomorrow? It's an hour and a half set. It's like, I don't know your material, but I can listen and prep and at least put those up there. But if you have the means, try to, and I've done that. I've subbed in on gigs, but I've had like a month run up time. And I'm like, and especially when I see their show where there's a lot of movement and there's the interactivity, I'm like, I don't want to be the one guy on stage holding an iPad, or just talk back to where everybody else is moving.
Hey, I want to have fun too, man.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, I subbed in with, was it a few years ago with John Party? And same thing. It was like, but and I memorized that show, but I had a month. So it was good. It wasn't a last minute thing. It's like, all right, well, let me put in the effort and do this because they're also a very active, engaging artist. And the guys do move around and everything else, but you have to engage the audience. And I'm like, okay, I was looking at the YouTube videos going like, this is going to be a problem. And they would have been fine. They were just like, hey, no worries. If you got to put an iPad there, fine. They would have been fine with it. But I thought to myself, if I have the means, I don't want to be the only guy tucked behind an iPad if I can avoid it. Right. And even so, if I ever find myself in a situation like that, I try to make that iPad as very non-seen as possible. Now, as far as I can't speak for the musicians that are playing like in Lower Broadway here in Nashville that are doing 4 hours a night or whatever. And sometimes I know that talking to some of those people, they're like, hey, we take requests and they'll tip us for the request. So obviously we're going to give it a go to get the extra 20 or 50 bucks or whatever. I understand that like they might not know, but hey, we're not going to say no to that money. We might as well at least dial it up on the iPads or whatever. Yeah. I can kind of understand that.
You're not going to be, your brain's not wired to the internet.
No, Google, exactly. Right. Exactly.
So, I mean, you got to have some sort of resource. I mean, if it wasn't an iPad, it would be in a 3-ring binder.
Exactly. And that's what we used to do. I mean, we used to have those things or whatever, if you're reading a book, but going to what you were saying about what drives you crazy about the drummer not driving it. Yeah. I mean, it's drums. You need to drive it. It's like
they're the ones driving the band.
Yeah. There's an energy that comes from an instrument like a drum kit or percussion in general. Yeah. It's an impactful thing. It's the beat. It's the metronome for everybody, including the audience. And it's something that instrument every instrument you have to approach with confidence because that'll reflect and the audience will catch on.
So you couldn't tell that I lost my ears. I heard that from a lot of people. And I'm something like, okay, somebody had to notice.
No, and that's no BS. I legitimately did not know.
Because everything was gone. We couldn't do the multimedia, the click I couldn't hear because the batteries had gone out of the box.
Right.
And, I think it even happened for Roger, the singer. He and I were looking at each other like, okay, you two, okay, well, the show must go on. And it's like everything was memory at that point.
Exactly.
Because I couldn't hear anybody else. For those of you who don't know, when you see those things in the ears of musicians, they're listening and hearing each other because you can't hear the band from the front of house speakers, the speakers that you are hearing the band when you're in the audience. Mm-hmm. So when you're sitting on stage, you need to be in this case, I was literally going along with the keyboard player in between two different songs to this New Orleans type shuffle that we were doing. And a lot of what I'm doing is dictated by what he's doing. I'm trying to listen to what he's doing to bring us into the next section of this particular number. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, right in the middle of that whole thing is when it went out. I was like, oh crap, I can't hear him at all. I just have to guesstimate where we are, and everything went out the window. Talk about just Murphy's Law.
Yeah. And look, you do this, the laws of averages, something that's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
It just did. And you did the right thing. The show, what do you say? The show must go on, right?
That's right.
And it's like, okay, it might not be the most ideal situation for you, but the audience doesn't know that.
Right.
And you just got to plow through. So again, I didn't notice.
Yeah.
It's like,
great.
Yeah.
Good. Coming from a professional, that makes a difference.
Good.
Well, because obviously the phone's been ringing off the hook ever since, No, not really.
Okay. Still, I don't know, but it could be true.
You never know. I wouldn't mind continuing. I want to get back into it a lot more than, having a kid upstairs here in the house and riffing and woodshedding every now and then. My brother and I even talked about doing a project of just like arena anthems, from all the stuff that we loved growing up listening to, and not necessarily a tribute thing, but maybe a theme.
Yeah.
Type, kind of.
Of course. Yeah. Whatever makes you happy. It's that's the other thing that people seem to lose sight of is like, well, why do you want to do this?
Yeah.
I want to do it because it's fun. That's the only reason you need.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, opportunities, we could argue the whole thing like, well, he's, too old to be in this band or whatever. Who cares?
No.
Just do your thing. Enjoy it. Like, don't worry about everything else. Just focus on I get the joy from doing this instrument. I'm going to do that, or play this instrument, I should say. Yes.
Now, when did you come to Nashville? First year?
First year was 1997.
Oh, wow. So right around the same time Rich got here as well.
Yep. I think Rich beat me here by a few months, I think.
So you were kind of like, you guys were all in your 20s at that point, I would imagine.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And then you're like a new class coming in. Mm-hmm. you're up against, players, at least from the drumming spectrum. You got your Eddie Bayers and all these other guys that have been on it was like a fraternity of 3 or 4 guys that were on like everything for like per instrument, like a wrecking crew scenario.
Pretty much. Yeah. It's always been that way. And I mean, we still kind of have that in play to a certain degree today. But yeah, we came up with those guys, and those are the guys that we looked up to. I mean, you mentioned all these great drummers, and there's a batch of bass players, guitar players, you name it, like everything. And we were, I don't want to say we're up against that, because I know sometimes you don't want to see it as a competition.
Yeah.
It's just you aspires, like they're doing it now, and I aspire to do that.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing about it. The good thing about that is that if you are patient and persistent and you stick it out here and you have the goods and you progress, is that eventually those people, even they're older than you eventually find yourself in work situation that you're working with them.
Yeah.
So, I worked with Eddie a few months ago, that was, what a joy,
He was a piano player to begin with too.
Absolutely. There's a couple, I've noticed like there's a few drummer percussionist guys, and Eddie's definitely one of them, that they're very musical. And it's and you realize they sit down and start tinkling on a piano. It's like, wow, they're great. And he's like, oh, this is why you play musically as a drummer too. It really informs that.
And they're drummers. I mean, otherwise they're just Neanderthals. Just bang on stuff.
Well, I mean, what's the things like, well, drums were the first instrument.
Yeah.
Yeah. Neanderthals.
Come up with my best beats on the toilet.
There it is. Thank you.
Yeah. So getting into the business side of things, when do you start developing? Well, first and foremost, before we get into that, when did you realize, okay, this is going to work? Like, because I mean, Nashville is largely known to be, I think once upon a time it was known to be like a 5-year town. Give it your best. A lot of people come into the situation not having too much business savvy, not understanding sales and selling, value proposition, any of that kind of thing. Of course, because, they all think, well, I'm in a sea of lookalikes, not understanding what really does sell. Of course, you got to be competent. You got to deliver the goods. You got to be able to play. Your gear better be good. But one of the biggest things that, like, going back to Rich once again, he does these speeches called Crash Course for Success. Crash being an acronym. The A stands for attitude. And a lot of that has to do with, what's your attitude like? Doesn't mean that you cannot posture and sell yourself and come across with a bad attitude,
right,
or cocky. But coming into this town, somebody fresh, is it possible, if they have some sort of sales finesse, to like convince somebody to pay them better what they should be getting? Is that possible, you think?
I think it is possible, and it depends on the approach, because it's, well, going back to what you're saying about it being a 5-year town or whatever, that's something I've been hearing for a long time. And I don't know if I subscribe to that philosophy, because it's almost like comparing apples to oranges.
Or bowling balls.
Or any spherical object. I don't know. The thing is that everybody is different. We're dealing with different personalities, different opportunities, different situations, different levels of drive, different work ethics. So there could be a person who be like, I nailed it in 5 years, and another person that did it in 1. Or some people like, I really didn't start to see the light of day until 10 in, and it's very different, because you can't compare, like, my career trajectory does not remotely line up with anybody else's, and vice versa. It's like, well, you're doing something similar to this person here, but how I got here was wildly different, even amongst, like, say, bass players. So as far as what they can do better to sell themselves, that again might be a tough thing, because it's, other than the way I grew up, both from my family and also just really great teachers that I've had growing up, is just, the whole adage of working hard, do well, learn your craft, whatever that may be. And that should be at least the start of, this is what I can sell you or whatever. The other thing that's worked in my favor, as far as you talked about, like if you want to put a monetary type of approach on it, well, why should we pay you more than this guy?
Right.
The other thing, at least in my position, is experience. Because there's been times where people, not just me, but other musicians have been hired because, oh my God, you played on my favorite record or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to play exactly what I played on your favorite record for your record because you're not the same person. And you know, you love this rock record I played on that did well. Great. I'm going to do an Americana record with you. I'm not going to do the same approach.
Yeah.
But one of the things they're willing to is like, yeah, but we still want you. So that alone puts the value, and you say, all right, well, you know, it'll be this much or whatever.
Right.
Which is not like, I'm not highway robbery, but it's going to be what's worth it, you know, for all parties involved.
Especially if you're doing like remote tracking, things of that nature. Are you able to do that from your home?
Absolutely. I've been doing that for years. And that's something that I'm trying to think of, because I was talking to somebody about this recently, about the whole concept of remote tracking, which is very much the norm for all parties involved: drummers, bass players, guitar players, keyboard players, vocalists. It didn't always used to be that way, but I always aspired, even like in the early aughts, you know, 3, 4, 5, even then I thought of this because I'd watched a documentary on, it was The Phantom Menace, if you remember, Star Wars Episode 1.
Yeah.
And Frank Oz did his Yoda voices remote, like through an ISDN line. And they showed it, and he was like his little home, whatever. I'm like, we could do that with music, couldn't we?
Totally. Yeah.
And, you know, it's like, I thought it was like, oh, I'm brilliant. I came up with this idea. No, that they already had that in the works, but it started to see the light of day around 04, 05, 06. So I was doing everything I could to get into that world. And now that we've progressed with the equipment being a lot better and a lot more cost effective, that now it's a thing, you know? So as far as a value goes, yeah, people will seek me out that don't live here in Nashville or even the United States, because they liked something I did that they heard, whether it was on the radio or, you know, Spotify or whatever, and just did their due diligence to Google me and go like, oh, that was who played. And I was like, hey, and it's easy. We're a lot more approachable, but that puts the value like, okay, cool. Well, okay, it'll be this much.
Are you emailing them that way?
Am I emailing them?
Yeah.
Or
like they reach out via email or DM or something like that. Are you mainly keeping your communication there?
Absolutely. Yeah. There is a producer in Austin, Texas that I've been working with now steadily for a number of years.
Yeah.
And I actually should email him just to see how he's doing and go like, hey, do you realize we've never met in person? We've never spoken on the phone, yet we've been working together now for 3, 4, 5, 6 years.
Yeah.
And he produces a bunch of different artists, and I've done all that stuff. So yeah, the communication's just been that, because now everything is via electronically. Like, you know, I record at home, email my track. He pays me electronically, you know, Venmos me the money or whatever. So it's all this, so we can do that.
Right.
But going to your point about the value of what you're getting, or what would make you and put value for yourself, is one of those things is like, I talked about they had known about me from something else I did, but that came from, I've done this for a number of years and built up experience.
Yeah.
And I tell everybody, it's like, look, you know, whatever way is easiest for you, I can make that happen. Do you want to come to Nashville and record in an actual studio? I can help you make that happen easily.
Yeah.
Hey, if you need to be more cost effective, don't want to come or whatever, just email it to me and we can have a dialogue. It's easy enough to even, you know, on the phone or whatever. Hey, what do you need? You know, guide me the way you want me to play this, whatever.
Some people just want that Nashville experience, though. I'd imagine they want to come to town and do the thing.
Oh, 100%.
It's like a dream.
Yeah, I've done that a million times. There's been many times where I've been in a room full. Well, since you know, our mutual friend is Rich.
Yeah.
There has been a client who came from LA, who flew into town because he wants to come in and be in the room in a proper studio with professional session musicians and make the record. Rich was the session leader. He was the contact, and he put us all together. So he called me for that or whatever. But that guy even said, yeah, we could totally do this remotely if we wanted to. But he understood, even though he's not a professional musician and doesn't understand the mechanics, he also understood the whole vibe of, no, this is being part of this thing of the creative process of us musicians bouncing ideas off each other in real time. And then him as the client coming is like, man, I love what you guys are doing. Could you go in this direction a little bit? And we go, sure. and it's that quick. Yeah. And he loved that. It just got the juices flowing. So a lot of people come going like, hey, and of course, like living in the day and age of social media and people saying, well, we're really, could we do this remotely and save money? Sure. But we're going to fly in and go to Sound Emporium or Ocean Way because we want to make content. Behind the scenes is a big thing. And it looks a lot more impressive when you're in a big tracking room than just, all right, let me email you a couple pictures of me at home at my desk playing, not as impressive, but it is. And there's in it, and I can't fault them for this. Like, yeah, you're spending a little extra money, but then I look and it's like, man, that looks great.
Yeah.
I get it. But there is something to be said. There is still value, not just in getting content. It's the way you're being creative, so there's value in that. There's also a thing of like, okay, well, yeah, you got to pay a little bit more, but here's how I'm going to tell you, or how I can tell you how it's worth your time and money.
Does your garage door sound like this? If it does, it's screaming for help. Call Incredible Doors, 931-348-DOOR. We're making garage doors in Murray and Williamson counties work better and sound better. We just make them incredible again. Go to IncredibleDoors.com or call 931-348-DOOR. Follow us on Facebook for specials on maintenance visits, keypads, and other items. 931-348-DOOR. IncredibleDoors.com.
Well, that's the thing, is that's the value proposition. Mm-hmm. Hey, typically I get, range from this to this, but here's what you get when you work with me. Same thing I used to do with,
sure,
people reaching out for voiceovers and stuff like that. I said, I'm going to give you pickups, little, depending on what mood I'm in, I might riff a little bit and I do that all the time. Whenever I do like a legit voiceover, and people always respond, dude, that was hilarious. You still give them the scripted portion of it, but hey, what if you kind of did something like this and you kind of do a pickup version of it and throw it in and see what, because that's what we used to experience with voice guys in radio, the guys who do the big voice, in between the songs.
Sure.
The first experience I had was with a guy named Doug Paul at the first radio station where I worked. And he used to do that all the time. We would just listen to the raw track for entertainment because he was just hilarious.
Yeah.
He would read all the stuff, but then he would just have little off beats and takes, and that's good. We'd use them.
Yeah. Well, that's a great way to approach that. Is that what are you getting like when they hire somebody like you to do a voice thing, which is something you're very skilled at? The value is you're getting your voice. You have a unique voice. You don't have that guy's voice. It's not better or worse. It's just you're getting this voice. Right. Your approach is different. Even as something as simple as the equipment and the facilities that you have to make it sound good. I have the right mics. I have the right equipment. It's going to be professional. Yeah. That's another thing I say about the value in myself. It's like, yeah, you're getting my approach and my signature as far as how I approach music, but you're also getting the instruments that I own. You're getting, well, yeah, but that guy doesn't have these vintage instruments or these custom-made instruments and that have a unique tone or something else.
Have you ever been shopped against somebody else and you knew it?
I'm going to say yes. I don't remember any specific examples, but I had a sense of yes. And it's so funny because when people get into the mode of shopping against it, it's funny. They don't see the value. They literally go by dollar amount.
Yeah, it's commodity.
It's a commodity. It's like, and when people go that route 9 times out of 10, they don't understand what they're paying for. You could explain to them, and it's very difficult to explain from like what we've been talking about, this thing from what I'm giving you as a musician, as a professional, they don't, because they don't understand it. They can't wrap their head around it, or they don't know where to start to ask about that.
Yeah. Or
they don't give it a chance. Like, hey, listen to this, so they just see like, oh, well, you're going to, you're X amount of dollars and this guy's 10% cheaper. Well, the smart business move is to go with the 10% cheaper for the air quotes, same product, but it's not the same product.
But do you think a lot of musicians in Nashville understand that? In terms of value proposition and learning how to sell themselves, I would say probably 5% of them understand sales.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's, and
the powers that be know it.
Yeah, no, 100%. And to give you a little background, like I do have a background in sales.
Yeah,
I have done it. I did retail. That was kind of like my day jobs during college. And then like when I first got here, I worked at a music store. I sold pro audio gear and I sold basses, instruments,
Okay.
So I just add the things like I initially got hired because I had working knowledge with pro audio and recording and everything else. So obviously it was easy enough when I was in Boston before I came here to get a job at music store to sell pro audio, because I knew the stuff because I just learned about it in college at Berkeley.
Yeah.
But also being a musician, it's like, well, you play bass, you notice that, so we can have you float between the two and do all of it. So when I moved here, literally, I think not even 48 hours of me here, I walked in a music store just going like, hey, are you hiring? I need a job.
Yeah.
And they're like, as a matter of fact, we do. Boom. And I had a job.
Nice.
So, and that was sales because it's like, I understood the product, but there's, as you know, it's like, yeah, but that's part of the whole equation. You have to learn to be a salesperson,
right?
And how to sell it. Yeah. It's good. You have the skills and the understanding of what you're selling, and now funnel that as sales.
How do you communicate it?
How do you communicate it? Yeah, exactly. And how do you make the potential customer feel comfortable with that?
Totally.
That's the other thing too, about the value of what I do, what you do, and everything else, is like, you never want to be in a situation of a potential new client, a new artist, or whoever you're working with. And they say, well, why should I pay you X amount of dollars? That seems a little high. And to them it is, because they've never done it before.
Right.
And you never...
How do you address that?
Yeah. Well, that's the toughest thing. I always have to keep myself in check, and you address it based on the person, because everybody's going to approach it different. Sometimes you can get into the weeds about the mechanics. Oh, I've got this, 1966 precision bass and blah, 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 whatever. Some people are like, yeah, what's that? I don't get it. Yeah. And you can tell right away and go like, okay, we're not going to talk about that.
Yeah.
And then you talk about the experience. You never want to, whatever approach you take, you never want to approach it where they feel like they're getting talked down to.
Condescended to.
Yes.
That means to be talked down to.
Sorry. Thank you for the, sorry, English, not so good. So, wow.
I don't mean to sound condescending,
but yeah.
That means to be talked down to.
Okay. Yeah. This goes in your tight 5 for your stand-up routine. Okay. This is wonderful. I can't wait.
I'm telling you, you're giving me material here.
This is great. I can't wait for it. I'll be there and I'll have a cocktail in hand. But you never want to approach it that way, because that's the last thing you want to do. I'll give you a good more example, not just selling yourself, but like as a session musician, you walk in and everybody there, and they're all seasoned pros, and like, we don't have to explain. You're like, hey, good to see you. We're going to have fun today. Yeah. And the producer says, oh, we have, this young 16-year-old singer's coming in from Texas to record and having the Nashville experience. Most, if not all nowadays, people that understand it, and this goes into the sales thing, they know how to communicate with that person. Okay, this is their first time in a recording studio. This is their first time in Nashville. They're already feeling intimidated. The last thing we need to do is we need to try to do our best to make them feel comfortable and be, and I've watched top tier guys, somebody of an Eddie Bayers level, like you said, or a Chad Cromwell or whatever. I've watched them like professionals. Just basically, it's like almost
hazing them, vibing them out.
Well,
right?
Not really. No, thankfully, because they're so nervous as it is. That's the last thing you want to do. But I've watched them verbally. It's almost like they put their arms around. It's like, it's okay. We got you.
Oh, the opposite. Okay.
The opposite. Yeah. What'd you say about the condescending thing? It's the complete opposite. Even though we know, oh, bless their heart, they don't know what the heck we do or whatever. It doesn't matter.
Right.
And we know, and even it's their first go around. The songs, I wrote the song. It might not be the greatest thing, but it's their, what do you expect? It's just their first time doing it. They'll get better.
Yeah.
But you never want to,
Is their money green? Great.
Exactly. Yeah. But we want to make sure that all of them, the client, if it's something like a 16-year-old, it could be their parents are there too, and they might be the ones paying, and they're there in the room too.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that they feel welcomed and that they feel that's money well spent.
I've heard stories, especially from Rich, back when we were shooting his documentary. We did his long car ride after he got off a bus, and we just shot some footage of him talking. Mm-hmm. And he says, man, that's the one thing, is that I will never vibe somebody out in a studio. Yeah. He says, because that's happened to me, and it's not fun.
Yeah,
and
he's like,
to me too. And those people who do it, who you are. And, I'm this close to calling you out, but it's, yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that happens, because there's no need to do that. And Rich can speak to this, or anybody, working nowadays can speak to it. We had those formative years where we're the young guy, the new guy, whatever it is, and somebody's vibed you out. Now, in my case, I've had a couple instances early on where I'd be in a session and I was definitely the new guy by a long shot. And it's usually because the guy that they did want, professional guy, whatever, was not available.
Yeah.
Or, he got called for another session, or he was sick or whatever. And the producer's like, let me give the young guy a chance. I think he'll be all right. And I remember vividly, there's some of those guys that I work with to this day that were the complete opposite. It never vibed me out.
Yeah.
But there was like the one dude that completely vibed me out because he was mad, he or she was mad that their buddy, who is the pro guy, wasn't in on, didn't make it. And who's this young guy or whatever. And they just had a chip on the shoulder automatically. Yeah. I never understood that. But so I now role reversal. I try not to be that guy when there's somebody new now.
Because you know what it's like.
Yeah. I know exactly what it feels like. And even if there's somebody that got put in there new, which I've had that happen not too long ago, and you could tell they're a little bit out of their element. Like it wasn't a session ender, but you definitely was like, okay, it's going to take a little extra time because you're a little behind the 8 ball, so to speak. You want to kind of steer them in the right direction, but not feel like you're vibing them out or talking down to them.
Right.
Because the moment you do that, then they're going to get really nervous and falter. And then basically that's really going to shut the session down. Then it's like, great, then we're never getting this down.
How old are these people typically?
Early 20s.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Early 20s, usually. And even that, I can say that for myself. Like my first couple, pro sessions or whatever, I got the opportunity. I was early 20s as well.
Is that when you got mostly vibed out?
Yeah, I would say so. I got vibed out a couple times there, but I can honestly say now it was very few and far between.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a fraction of a percent of the times that I've been in a recording studio where that's happened to me or professional situation.
When we moved to Vegas for my second radio job, big jump from where I was. 6-station cluster. We were working for one of the redheaded stepchildren AM stations, talk stations. So I already kind of had that going against me. I went from being like a giant fish in a puddle to just a minnow in an ocean. And, learning all the people's names, getting, first time we've ever moved away, 2,000 miles away. The morning guy at the radio station currently around that time was a great talk host. But when he was off the air, he didn't talk to anybody. He barely gave you the time of day, would look straight. I just want to go home. He finally got like his escape to go to a major market in Philadelphia. And for a while there, he was doing his show while he was like, transitioning. And then in Philadelphia, he would do it remotely via ISDN. So he would, I guess, voice track. So a buddy of mine there at that time, I guess, pulled him aside. And we all, like, as we kind of found our own groups, because some of us were still new, we were like, oh yeah, the guy's just a jackass, So this dude comes up to the guy who's leaving, the talk host, who had, a breadth of experience in the industries, but it's not like he didn't do anything. He goes up to him, my friend Tom. He says, hey, good luck in Philadelphia. When you get there, try not to be an asshole.
Ooh.
Like you were here.
Ooh.
And the guy kind of looked at him like shocked.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by that? He's like, oh, dude, you freaking treated us like we were less than. And he called him out on it.
Wow.
The guy was like, to this day, we have a great relationship. Yeah, sometimes you just got to point it out. Like, oh my gosh, I had no idea.
Yeah, well, that might, and good for him for like,
having the balls.
To say it. And then the other guy seems like he changed his ways.
He was contrite.
Yeah. And maybe it was one of those things where you're right. It's like, sometimes we need that. It's like, we don't realize because if you're too internal, it's too close to home. You might not realize you
have no idea how you're coming off.
I do the thing, it's like, we talk about like the faces, we're talking about performing, like when whatever faces we're making, sometimes we don't realize we're making them. And then somebody's like, hey man, you look like you're constipated. Apparently, according to my family, I look like I'm angry all the time. See, there you go. Well,
to the point where we're sitting like for Mother's Day, we went to go see a soccer game at the Geodis for the first time. Mm-hmm. And we're like, hey, let's go get some barbecue or whatever. And like, Dad, why do you look so mad? I'm like, I'm not. But you look like I swear to you, I am not mad. And I'm looking at myself in the phone and going home. I said, maybe I just need to work on my RBF. Yeah. So there's a video of me literally just like stretching out my face, moving it and blah, blah, blah. And I said, I will give you my complete relaxed face as best as I can. And I literally, at the end of like doing all these exercises, stretching out my neck, I just go, just let out a nice relaxing sigh. And then I just kind of looked up and they're like, yeah, you look pissed. I'm like,
Can't win.
I'm not.
Yeah, it's
this
like
is how I look.
Yeah, it's like I'm trying to avoid the RBF because, you know, you might have IBS, might be causing the RBF for you. So
it could be. You know? Could be the IRS. Typically, that's what happens.
Exactly. There's that too.
Getting into like, what do you see for like, as music is evolving these days, and you got the Spotify quotient and all these different things that are happening, it seems like this industry is constantly changing, especially like even again, when I was in Vegas, people were trying to figure out, okay, what do we do about this? Gosh, I can't brain fart. What's the Metallica went after him?
Napster.
Okay. Napster gave birth to what we now know as iTunes. Okay. Well, if you know, we know that's illegal. Well, hey, what about $1 a song? Yeah. Okay. I can do that. You know, with all those different things evolving, what is the future, especially now with AI?
Yeah.
Where's it going to go?
Well, that's a good question because it's, you know, we've been alive long enough and I've done this long enough now that I've experienced that transition. Yeah. You know, I got signed to a record deal right on the cusp of that. That was a learning experience. You know, it was like, we basically, when I got signed to Atlantic with this particular band, we got signed in 2001. The record came out in 2003. That was right on the cusp of like from physical product to the digital medium. And that's when we got our butts handed to us, you know. So, you know, it's just illegal downloading because the iTunes thing even hadn't taken hold yet. So there's no money to be had there. Obviously, streaming didn't exist, but Napster did, and people LimeWire and all that stuff. As far as where the industry is going now, so AI is another thing, another factor beyond just the where's the music thing going. You know, right now, as soon as streaming took hold with, you know, especially the Spotify or whatever, I'm like, as much as I hate to say it, I'm like, yeah, that's where it's going. I called it, you know, a couple of years ago or a few years ago, I could see that. I'm like, it's too easy for the consumer. Yeah. You know, that's the other thing too. It's like, as much as we want to, as the producers of this product, if you will, the musicians and the artists and everything else, we want everything to be as ideal as possible to where it's fair for us and equitable for us. But the reality is like the consumers are going to go for whatever's easiest for them. Yeah. And it is. And I use streaming. It's like, it's like now I have like, I don't have to, man, I really want to hear that old record from 1955. I can just pull it up in a heartbeat. So why wouldn't I do that? Right. And everybody does that, even though it's, you know, we're getting kind of screwed over financially. I just saw an article today or yesterday. This is going to the AI thing, to where there is a band that was created completely fake AI and everything else, including all the songs are AI'd, but now they've already got 1 million followers, like a fake band with tunes that were created via AI and personalities were created by AI have more followers than a lot of independent artists that are out there. And that's the thing. Now, I've also watched in a very short amount of time, you know, where you could sit there and chat GPT or whatever and say, hey, you know, write me a song, and you put in the parameters, you know, in the style of Garth Brooks, write me the song about sitting on the back of a pickup truck by a lake or whatever. And it spits it out like in 30 seconds. Yeah. But when you listen back, the quality of it goes like, oh, it sounds like very warbly and artificial or whatever. Well, in a matter of months, it was like, oh my God, that it sounds real now. It was that fast. Yeah. So yeah, I think that there is, I don't know. It's just like, it's very tough because it's easy for me to see the defeatist side of it or the negative side of like, again, it's too easy for the consumers and they don't care if it's real or fake. They're just like, oh, I like that. I don't care if it's fake. I don't know how much of that's going to take hold in the next bit and how much of the percentage of people like are going to latch onto that versus reality. I don't know. You know, it's very difficult because like I saw a lot of things in the last like decade or two where I saw the trends and go like, yeah, I saw that coming. I could see that. You could almost draw the through line and go like, yeah, the streaming, the everything else or the digital and whatever. Here on out, it might be difficult because it's moving at such an exponential rate that I have a hard time even going, I could see that happening. I couldn't tell you for sure if that's exactly what's going to happen.
It's the human, and John and I talked about this He says the thing about AI is that it's able to tap into all of the human emotional spectrum at such a, expedited, exponential rate that it can really write a very human connection, a compelling connection song.
Absolutely.
Because it's got access to, centuries of information of what humans have been through. Whereas one songwriter, it may just be their experience. And I'm like, yeah, I said, you're not wrong. I said, but there's still an element of a Walmartization of music that is going to happen where it's like, I don't know. I mean, is it going to be where it's like going from the Spotify factor and, the streaming aspect of things to now this? It's like, what do you do, man? It other than, for the streaming aspect of it, pulling it all down and say, I don't stream. If you believe the same way I do, you can get all my music here. It's not as convenient.
No.
But I mean, you like my music and you like what I'm going to be doing. Here's where you can get it. And you can buy it directly from me, know. But then again, AI isn't going to replace the live performance. So maybe that's where it lives, That fake band is not going to be able to do touring.
No, but there's also the argument too that like they can't tour because there isn't a physical thing, but who's to say that they could throw it up on a movie screen through a PA? Are you familiar with the TV show Metalocalypse? You ever heard that one?
No.
So it's an animated show that came out a number of years ago, and it's about a fake death metal band called Death Clock. That's the name of the band. And the guy who created that show for Adult Swim years ago is a guy Brendan Small. I went to Berkeley with him, and he does all the music, does the voices, animated, whatever. And then this show blew up on cable, on TV, on Adult Swim, whatever.
Right.
And so much to the point that like, we want to tour this. And he's like, how? It's fake. It's all me. And I mean, I can go out and tour, but I can't cover everybody at once. And they just said, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to throw up a screen, play the video or whatever, and it's going to be you, and put a band together, and you guys just sit in the dark and play in front of a screen. And they've been doing that for a number of years now, successfully.
Really?
Yeah, very successfully.
But it's still human performances.
It's still a human performance. There's still people and still notably great musicians on there. But the performance aspect, again, it's like the fans of that know the players that are involved with it.
Right.
But there's people that could care less, it's just but it's still getting a live experience. They're still in an audience getting the experience, but it's just mainly a video screen,
right.
But it's real musicians. But who's to say also like, the current ABBA show that's happening, they built an arena for that, where it's holograms and it's ABBA. It's like, it's them, but there's no, it's just the screen. It's just playback or whatever, that kind of thing. So again, who's to say this, that, or whatever? I don't know. It's the same argument we're having with like, we're going to only put 2 people on stage and run tracks, even though a band tracked that, but that's
what I'm seeing with the next generation.
Yeah. There's a lot of that going. I mean, you talk about like, I know Post Malone's out doing the country thing with a full band, and that's great. But even prior to that, like The Weeknd, he goes out there. He has a couple band people there, but I was hard pressed to find them. Like I looked and he's doing stadiums, and I was having a hard time finding, is there even a DJ back there doing the thing or whatever?
Ed Sheeran did it.
Yeah.
But those are all live performances using a loop machine.
Well, Ed Sheeran is not quite that, because it's still him performing.
Right.
It'd be the equivalent of if you had like, if Bob Dylan wanted to get out there and play solo acoustic, people would still come in droves to see it, but it's still him performing and whatever. Ed Sheeran is doing the same thing. But even now, Ed Sheeran does that for part of the show, and he brings band members now. So he brings a show. Yeah. So I give Ed all the credit in the world, because it's still his songs and he's still performing them live, and it's still like, there's a real element to it. I don't know. That's all I have to say. It's been very tricky. It's like, I might have a better, clear answers to some of that, like at 3:00 this morning, when my brain is in a different spot to go, oh, I think it's going to be this.
Right.
But honestly, I don't know.
I can't for the life of me figure out how this is going to play out.
I don't either. I don't know how it's going to play out. I mean, maybe it's just going to be more of that. Yeah. And maybe it's not going to be that defeatist. It's not like maybe the live thing is not going to go away. I'm still making a living making records. Yeah. So there's still that with real people and real instruments.
But are they gold records?
Oh, some are gold. Yeah. I put my pants on one leg at a time. Yeah.
What I do, I make gold records.
Actually, yeah, there's still like, just got a platinum record recently, you know? So I'm like, oh, good. That's still real. That's still happening. And that means that people are still listening to it. People are still buying it. People are still doing this. People are still consuming that stuff. So there's still value, because I think I play an instrument, you know, that's, you know, yes, it's primarily whether it's an upright bass or bass, but it's still something that involves me playing the instrument.
Yeah.
And I think, well, you could easily program that in or do a fake version of that. But I'm still getting hired all the time to come in and record a real instrument. So I guess it's still valued.
I want to see you play more, though. I see a lot of pictures of you in the studio. You're doing behind the scenes stuff. What about doing, you know, some of these other guys? Sarah plays bass, comes to mind. I don't know if you ever heard of her, but she just puts a camera on her. She plays the different tracks, whoever she's into at the time, and she's fun to watch.
Sure.
Because she's having fun.
Exactly. You know? And that's great. And they're having fun. And there's a million people. I would venture to guess more of the people that the younger generation is familiar with are those people. They're like, oh, I'm a fan because they're great players, but it's just them posting videos of them playing at home or whatever.
Right. But you can do that and all the other things.
Exactly.
You know, put a camera, a GoPro or whatever on you in the studio while you're doing your thing.
And I've actually done that a couple times. I don't do it as a habit, but I've done, I remember I was sitting at home and there's a particular fretless bass that I have that I love this instrument, and I was just cleaning it up and restringing it and doing little tweaks and doing a little, like, just normal maintenance stuff. But I was sitting there, okay, now that I got all tweaked out, let me plug it in, let me play a little bit, make sure it's all up to snuff or whatever. And I was just messing around. I'm like, you know what? Let me just put the phone up and I'll film me just messing around. I posted that. That was a couple months ago, and it got a lot of response.
Yeah, you need to do that more.
Apparently so, because everybody's like, dude, that sounds great. I love the sound. Like, oh, you play great. And it's like, well, thanks. You know,
because that's the thing is, like, you know, even when with Rich, I've told him that I said, let's get, you know, on a regular basis, you just doing covers, the way you would interpret different things, and even showing the other styles that you're proficient. Because for the longest time, you know, he was on the front end of all the video back in the late aughts, I guess, when he and I first met. And I would encourage him to do this, that, and the other thing. He was putting like live videos up. He was one of the first people to do that. Some in studio stuff that was so grainy and you couldn't make out the sound very well. But he ended up getting to the point where like he started getting haters that would say, well, anybody can do that in the studio. It's like, oh yeah, mofo?
Yeah.
Come on out and try.
Yeah, go for it.
You know what I mean? Because they always thought watching him do the simplistic, you know, very radio ready type of parts that were tasteful. But it's like, dude, that's just the tip of the iceberg with that guy.
Yeah.
I've seen him spang-a-lang, you know, big band stuff, you know, fusion, funk, all the things.
Well, that's something with the younger generation too. And this is, I don't think just the younger generation. This is like when we were all younger as musicians and players. Yeah. There's that thing of, we get impressed by the flash and stuff.
The sizzle, not the stick.
Yeah, exactly. The sizzle, I love it. 5 minute set. You know, where we see, there it is. You got it.
Thank you.
You know, when you start to get proficient at your instrument or whatever, the next thing you want to do is like, ooh, I want to do something fancy and flashy and whatever, because people go, ooh and ah. It does generate a reaction. And then as you progress and you start to talk about the thing about being musical and playing music, it's like, yeah, we could be in the studio, and as a drummer, you're doing the most, what would be air quotes, the most pedestrian 2 and 4, but that's the most musical thing and the appropriate thing to do for the song. So that's the impressive thing. But really, can you do that and make it feel good?
Right.
You know, that's the thing that people don't see and don't realize until they get into the weeds about their instruments. Like, oh, there's this whole thing about making it feel good and really the pocket and things like that. You know, it's just like, they don't get that.
Doesn't move people.
It doesn't move people as much. So like there's the ooh and ah. And yeah, a lot of people will post themselves playing, and it's usually this phenomenal technique, which is great. Okay, I'm impressed by this technique. Now, can you put that in the context of a song? And a lot of times, yeah, great, you can do that. Now, do you want to get hired? I also need somebody that can play something, air quote, simplistic, but that's appropriate for the song.
You get along with everybody. That's the always impression I've gotten. Everybody likes you, that meets you. You know, you're very easy to work with. You're easy. You have a good disposition about you. You know. So who do you hate in town?
Wow, it's kind of like you got to turn the light on me. Like, it's like
with all that being said,
there really is. I mean, in all honesty, I can't really think of anybody that I hate in town. Like, no.
Okay, I'll rephrase the question. What's something you not hate, but strongly dislike about Nashville, about the machine?
I don't know. Maybe sometimes it is like, because, and I recognize it's a necessary evil because we do talk about our art form in the sense of commerce. And I do get it. As much as I want to be idealistic and just be all about the art, I just want to play the music or what. I was like, well, yeah, but I still got to make a living. And then I have friends that are, record label execs and managers or whatever. And it's quicker for them to see the commerce side of it because it's their gig. It's like, yeah, you do the art, but
it's their identity.
But I have to do this in order for me to make money and for you to make money.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't, as much as they, like, well, you seemed as the evil, you're taking the art out of it, or was like, no, I'm trying to help you put a roof over your head.
Yeah.
So I get that. So I guess if there's anything I dislike is sometimes where people don't see that. The other thing too, that I might say that it might be a dislike for me. And again, I understand why has to be done, is this whole concept of like being on top of social media and everything else. That's our advertising channel, if you will, for people.
Yeah.
It's like to make people aware of who you are and what you do. So I understand when an artist comes to town, is like, hey, it used to be, put it this way. It used to be, as a session musician 10, 15 years ago, it's like you go do it, whatever, you might snap a picture or two. And then the artist or the producer says, hey, guys, they're going to bring in some cameras. Is that okay? And just make sure you put on a clean shirt.
Yeah.
Okay. It used to be they would ask you ahead of time. Now it's expected. It's like, if we're doing a session, chances are there's some video camera, it's rolling.
Yeah.
Because they need it for content. So sometimes I'm like, why is this artist coming in dressed for the stage when they're just going into the booth to sing their part? Well, yeah, but they're getting pictures and they want to look decent for their pictures. Like, all right, I get it. It is what it is.
The brandable image.
The brandable image is kind of like, hey guys, let's do that again because we got to get footage for that. And again, sometimes I kind of go, okay, whatever. I thought that was a great take for the playing aspect. But I do recognize like, no, that's the way of the world. I get it. All right, no worries. I'll help you with that any way I can. Right. So maybe it's not even dislike is a little strong of a word for it. Sometimes I just kind of go, all right, well, I trained to be a musician. This is what I'm doing, not to, make sure that I look good in the shot or whatever.
Right.
But I get it, Do
you have aspirations 5-10 years down the road? What do you want to be doing?
More the same. I think more the same and more of it, maybe, if there's something to be said about my aspirations, because it's really tough at this stage in the game. It's like, all right, well, I've gotten record deals. I do work in the studio on a regular clip. I do work for major label artists. I have toured. I have seen the world. I've done these things. So for me, it's like, is there anything you haven't done or whatever? To me, it's like, I love what I've done so far. I just want to do more of it.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some places that, some other studios I haven't worked at or whatever. It's like, hey, I've never tracked at Abbey Road before, just to say I did. It'd probably be like a session like any other, but I'd love to do that if somebody wants to.
It's a feather in your cap.
Yeah, it's a feather in your cap. And that's more of the like, hey, this is fun to say I've done it where, everybody's recorded at or whatever, the Beatles done, whatever. But there's my aspirations for going forward is just doing more of the same and continuing to do it at a high level.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that I really do get a joy in like, if I'm not in the studio this day or that day, then I'm home doing something to better myself for that. So whether that's, some more practice time or whatever, or like I said, doing all right, well, let me make sure that all my gear is up to snuff, or, hey, let me try a new setting on a piece of gear that I want to bring into the studio or something like that.
You try, and you really just have that passion to just keep nursing. I would imagine, dare I say, the bass is an extension of you, like a limb.
Of course. Well, that's the thing. It's like we talk about the extension of us. It's like, well, you mentioned I was going to address this, and this speaks to that about, well, AI is getting really good about this kind of stuff or whatever. Yeah. And AI can draw from the whole of human history of creating music or songs that'll touch you or whatever. But that's the difference. Like AI could be a person that's not you. Like, what do you bring? It's not better or worse. It's just different. So that's where I feel like, okay, AI might be a danger, might be not, but I just want to continue to improve and bring more to the table of what I do.
Right.
And that's kind of, I just see myself getting better. It's like you never, one of those aspirations is we're eternal students of the craft.
Do you use AI for anything?
Not really, no.
No?
I never have. I did for fun.
Yeah.
I've done it as jokes. I've done them more like, hey, we should friend of mine has a recording studio or whatever. It's like, oh, we should come up with the logo, some funny thing, a tongue in cheek, whatever. And I'm like, hang on a second. How about that? And we're like, oh, that's cool, whatever. Or I told you about the whole songwriting thing. It's like, it'd be fun. It's like, I was literally in the studio a couple months ago, and we were talking about how good AI is getting or whatever. And the guitar player on the session was talking about him and his cat, and he's a single guy or whatever. And the producer's like, yeah, it's so quick. And while they're talking about that, I was sitting in my chair at the studio. This was, I think, at County Q or something like that. And I pulled up Chat GPT, punching the parameters, and literally like, oh, you mean like this, guys? Mm-hmm. And they all lost it. There was like, that's brilliant. Send me that, So it was like more out of fun. That's where I use AI, is just to have fun with it. But I haven't used it as a legitimate tool. It doesn't mean I won't in the future. I just haven't yet.
But when you actually interact with AI, Chat GPT or whatever, do you find yourself being polite? Hey, please. Thank you. I do.
Maybe.
Because I want them to remember me when they take over the world and kill us all.
Yeah. And I, for one, welcome our digital overlords.
That's right.
But
yeah.
They're
going to be like, oh, wait a minute. Put him aside. He used to say, he would at least say please and thank you.
I think one of my kids pointed that out to me when I was talking to, and we use the term Miss A. You know what I'm talking about? Because if I say Alexa, all of a sudden, boom, things start to fire. Yeah. So we've learned to kind of go like, we refer to it as Miss A. So we don't say the name, because then all of a sudden there's some device that activates. But Mike, yeah, it's like, I didn't mean that. Sorry. One of my kids pointed out to me that, like, when I'm asking Miss A to play a song or say, hey, what's the weather or whatever, that I always say please and thank you. And they're like, they're not real. It's like, yeah, it's just
in case.
Just in case. So I do say, and it was like, I'm like, thank you. I say, thank you. Could you please tell me blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Cause we're waiting at any given moment for something to come back in time to, kill somebody.
Well, I mean, Skynet,
That's right.
is coming.
It's like literally what's happening right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we're seeing that, but
James Cameron's going, really?
Yeah. It's like,
I thought I did the best I could to warn you guys about this, but apparently not.
Yeah. He's having the big, I told you so moment, but also there was, there's the discussion about, like, in the medical field. I have a lot of friends and family that are medical. Actually, that's been my family lineage. I'm the first one in my generation not to be in medical for a while. My dad's a doctor and everything else, but there was that discussion about the advantages of AI. Yeah. There was that whole thing of talks like, hey, there was that doctor that said, hey, if you hang on for 5 years, is like, because we're going to make a leap and AI is going to help us with some medical advancements here coming up. So, I mean, that hasn't happened yet, but if we're seeing signs of that, it's like, well, maybe there's an upside to this.
Maybe there is.
And at the end of the day, we have to, what people not forget, but we shouldn't forget as human beings, like, hey, we created that. Let's keep in mind that we have the control of that. If you're worried about letting it get out of hand, then don't let it get out of hand.
How do you not?
Well, you and I both, we don't work in that field, but the people that do could. We can't, I think. And maybe
I know that there's like a moratorium okay, let's hit the brakes.
Right.
We're going a little too fast in this direction. We need to figure out where we are and where we're going with it. Mm-hmm. I know that's been put on the table. Whether or not it'll actually happen is another thing, but I think it's been between Elon and Jeff Bezos. Right. They're like, whoa,
Well, there's always been a thing with technological advancements, and this is before what we talk about AI in this now day and age. But some other technical advancements that have happened where, remember, we've always talked about, hey, let's not forget the ethical implications here or whatever. Like, right. What's Jeff Goldblum's line in Jurassic Park,
life will find a way.
Right. But he also said, like, just because you could doesn't mean you should.
Right.
There is truth in that, I think. But
nobody ever thinks about the end game.
No.
In those scenarios.
No. And everybody's guilty of that. Like, cause obviously I'll have my opinions of like, well, ethically we shouldn't progress this far or whatever, but I'm one person and there's a gaggle of people that are like, screw that. We're going to go full bore. There's gold in those hills.
Have you seen Oppenheimer, the movie?
Yes.
Great example of that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well,
what did I just do?
Well, exactly. What did I just do is like, this is great, highly intelligent, but oh my God, it's just like in the wrong hands, you know? Now, from a personal standpoint, I could argue like I tend to have faith in humanity. I tend to, you know, not all the time, but I tend to and go like, you know what? I generally think people mostly are good people, and they'll go like, you know what? Hey guys, they'll just do it naturally. At least I hope.
Yeah.
You know, and generally speaking, like we're still here. You know, we have blown up the, like, I mean, you know, you hear the stories about people who grew up during the height of the Cold War. And before that, you know, the Cuban Missile Crisis and everything else. And everybody's like, that's it. It's inevitable. People were convinced like we are going to be extinct in a matter of years, in 5 years. Here we are. So we figured it out.
Yeah. The machines will do it for us.
And there's that too. Skynet.
Skynet.
So
you can be discovered at Luis Espaillat, ESPAILLAT.
Yes.
.com.
Yeah, LuisEspaillat.com.
Espaillat.
Yeah, exactly. The double L's are a Y.
Did I say it the wrong way?
Did you emphasize the L's?
I don't know.
Espaillat? Yeah.
I don't know what I did.
Yeah, but some people do. But those double L's are like a Y, like it's you can go back to French.
It's Espanol.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, emphasis on the wrong syllable.
That's right.
Yeah, the website's there, but really I'm more active on the Instagrams and the book faces, the Facebooks, as they say.
Are you on the Talk Ticks?
I'm on the Talk Ticks, even though I don't post there nearly as much because I started getting into TikTok just like a year and a half ago, and I enjoy the platform, but when I would post on there, I found myself using too much time to post there. Like I would make more like minute-long videos. Like I would do the behind the scenes of the video at a session or whatever, but then I would take time and I would edit and put in people's names or whatever. And meanwhile, for a 60-second video, I just spent 2 hours on my phone. So I'm like, oh geez, this is cool. I dig it, but I'm like, man, I don't have the time for this. Like, so I do need to be a little more active on there and maybe just not overthinking. Just like, dude, it's 5 seconds, throw it on, call it a day. So that's why I really was more of a fan of Instagram because I do like pictures and you can put little videos on there and it's a little quicker, you know?
I get it.
So I'm more active there, but yeah, you can, if you go to the website, it'll steer you to all the social, all the things.
Well, there you go. We'll put all the details in the description as always that we do. And I forgot to mention, you are listening to the the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast.
Are we talking about business? Like,
yeah, we just did.
Did we? Yeah. I don't feel like we did. We kind of like went off and
we talked about sales and
good. We did talk about
music.
Just want to make sure that we're staying on brand. There's a term for you. You know?
That's up to me. That's what I do.
That's true. All right. Well, make us sound good, and you do that.
I'll try.
Okay.
I might be good at this. I'm not sure yet. You know, jury's still out.
And I think you've made a living at it. You're doing great.
Well, thank you. So all those things will be at mmtbp.com. That is the truncated version of Mostly Middle Tennessee businesspodcast.com. That does exist, but in case you don't want to write it all out, mmtbp.com. Subscribe, rate, share, review, all that fun stuff. And Luis, always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks for coming out.
Thanks for having me. Great pleasure.